get asked many times how I create my own brushes, and through the past 2 years I created different sets that you can find on my Ko-fi, and some of you were curious about my creative process, so here we are. I'm gonna show you the way I developed the brush from zero pretty much, but since there are many tutorials on how to create a brush on Procreate, today I want to focus on the texture itself, on the shape, the inspiration, and of course I'll also navigate you through the brush studio on Procreate, so no worries about that. And as you may know, I mostly focus on special effects brushes that I create for myself and for my artworks, so I mostly create particle, galaxy textures and things like that I really incorporate in my work all the time. So now that I'm diving into backgrounds and landscapes especially, and I'm working on my planetarium print set, it's a lot of alien landscapes, magical forest vibes, and that's what our new brush set will be based on. Since it will be magical forest themed, the first brush I want to create will be a fairy dust trail. So how to do that? I'll show you in a second, but first a word from today's lovely sponsor. A new sample from Printful just arrived, so it is time to unbox it with you guys. I've been saving this one for last because I am particularly excited about it. I love to customize my phone and my tech, so it was only fair to create a phone cover with my art on it. This is actually pretty impressive. It's super sturdy and very clear, and the print is spot on as always, especially when it comes to colors, which you know me by now, it's extremely important for me. If you want to create something similar and actually hundreds more customizable products of different kind, from apparel to home design to accessories, then you should try Printful. It is a print-on-demand service that allows you to create items with your designs on them and customize them to your liking. You can order a single product casually, or if you're an artist like me, you can connect it to your own art shop, set up a product there, and when an order arrives, it will go straight to them. Without worrying about ordering a big stock, they'll take care of printing and shipping to your customer. Simple as that. And of course, as I did, you can order samples for yourself to test if everything is okay with the print and the file, and to take nice picture in your aesthetic for your shop. And another thing that I love about Printful is that there's zero waste, because nothing will be printed unless an order arrives. So it is perfect for artists like me who want to create a little shop to sell their art but don't have a big storage option at home and still want to sell great quality products. Thank you so much to Printful for being a long-time supporter of my channel, and if you wish to try it, the link is in the description. Now back to the video. When I create brush textures, I always work on a 2000 pixel square canvas. I think it's more than enough. And now that we have our canvas, we can start working on the shape. Now, this particular brush will incorporate two different shapes that we will merge at the end. So I am working on a white interface, and that's mostly for the video. I suggest you to work on a darker background, especially when you create special effects brushes. And also remember to turn off the background color, because we need it to be transparent. As I said, I want to create a fairy dust trail, so let's start with the actual base. So I'm going to use a simple line art brush for this, and I'm going to start by creating our little shape. So if I want this to create kind of a trail, they will need to be little dots. They can also have different shapes like this, not so many, otherwise it will be a bit too crowded, but of course you can adjust the shape later on, so don't worry about that. And then with a soft round brush, I think I'm going to smudge them just a tiny bit like this. Kind of like little shooting stars, if you will. And don't be afraid to make them a little bit imperfect. That's what makes the brush special, in my opinion. And as you can see, I'm working on more of a rectangular shape because I want my brush to create some twirling effects, so keep that in mind. I'm going to center this and make it as large as the canvas, and we have our shape ready. So what we need to do now is make it white, so I'm going to alpha lock this and fill the layer. You can skip this step right here, just work directly with white on a darker background and you'll be good to go. I'm going to save this as a PNG so the background will be transparent into my gallery. And as you can see, I already created a new folder, so I have everything organized, and let's make a new brush. Our initial shape will be a simple circle, so we need to change this and put our shape we just created. So let's tap onto edit, import a photo, and the last one is our shape. Click done and let's see how it looks. Let's start with making this how we really want it. So I'm going to start by going on the stroke path and I'll set the spacing to a lower number, like 6% should be fine, maybe less. Yes, let's stabilize it a little bit, and I want to put the pressure up because this really needs to follow our hands as much as possible. You can also clear the drawing pad when it is full so you don't have a mess. And now I'm going to move on to the shape tab again, and first off I want to adjust the rotation because I want this to twirl on itself a little bit. Nice, don't worry about these little separation points, that's totally fine. We won't touch the scatter or the count, we don't need this in this particular brush. And I'm going to randomize it too, so it does have a different effect for each stroke. We can also adjust the roundness of the brush. So as you can see, it will have, depending on your pressure, larger parts and thinner parts, which is what we want. Now I'm going to go into the properties. This is very important, and I'm going to set the maximum size of the brush to almost the max. This is crucial because if you work on a larger canvas, you don't want to be limited on the sizing of the brush, so don't forget this. And now I will move on to the Apple Pencil parameter. This is very important for our pressure, the opacity, and everything our hand does. First off, we want to work on the size. It is very important that our hand pressure determines that. Start small and big and small depending on my pressure. Same thing for the opacity. I like to set it to the max because I want complete control. You can also play around with the tilt, but I generally don't touch this parameter. And also a little bit of flow, about 12%, so you will have this nice effect. Let's move on to the rendering, and I'll set this into uniform glaze. So this will be almost like a trail of light, and to enhance that effect, I'm going to also set the blend mode to add. Same for the burnt edges, I'll set this to add. You won't be able to see this right here, but you'll see that on a black background. See how it looks? Yes, perfect. And now we are going to work on our particles because, as I said, this brush will have 2 layers. And to do that, I am going to create a new layer again, and I will just turn off our other shape so we don't need to work on different canvases for all our brushes. And with the same line art brush, I'm going to create a little shape. I'm not going to do a round, simple round shape. I want to make kind of a particle effect, more like a speck of light. Maybe we can blur it a little bit. Now I'm going to keep this a little bit smaller on the canvas, and you'll see why, because we need to do a particle with this one and we don't want it to be too big. And here we have our little speck of light. Let's save it in our gallery as a PNG with a transparent background, and let's create a new brush. Let's go to our shape tab again, edit, and let's import our little texture. Now to make the particle effect, we need to go to the stroke path tab and set up the spacing, the jitter. I don't want this to be too crowded because remember, we will need to overlap it to the other brush. On the shape tab again, I'm going to randomize it and scatter it a little bit. You can also increase the count. This will give you a lot of particles, but a crucial thing we need to adjust is the size. So let's go into dynamics. I'm going to make it a little bit smaller. Same with the jitter. As you can see, some of the particles will stay bigger, some will get smaller. Let's see how it looks. And you can go back and forth between the tabs and adjust this to your liking. So I want a little bit more of this. Yeah, this is much better. Alright, I really like how it looks. I think it will complement the other brush very well. Now that we have these two brushes, we need to merge them. So how do we do that? Select the main brush, which will be our trail, then the other one, and tap on Combine. And as you can see, we have a brush with both our effects combined. Now, we're not done yet because there's more that we can adjust. So I'm going to set this to light grays. I think it looks better. And as you can see, you can select the brushes to adjust things in both. Now, on the main one, you will have more parameters you can work with, but that's totally okay. Yeah, I think this is fine. And it's time to try it. Let's see how it turned out. I'm gonna show you on a darker background. I hope you cannot see the light flares. Here's where the effect really shines through. Of course, you can adjust the shapes even when the brushes are already combined, so don't worry about that. If there's something you don't like or you want to tweak, you can definitely do that. I will probably do that with this brush too while I work on the set, but here is the basic process on how to merge two different brushes. Moving on, now we'll create a variant to one of the brushes that I made, which is the Holographic Rainbow Final Touches. This is one of the brushes that you guys like the most, so I'm going to show you how to create something similar and how to do it with different shapes. For this one, I want to make kind of a swirling magic effect, like something that would come out of a magic wand. So here we really need to play around with the initial shape and the brush studio later on, so let's start. For this shape, I'm going to use a soft round brush and create kind of a half moon shape like this. Now this is something you can really play around with, so don't be afraid of making mistakes because there's no such thing. It is all about experimenting and finding the shape that you will ultimately like. And let's blend it. And okay, let's center it again. Let's go back to our lovely folder and create a new brush. Shape tab, edit. Let's import our shape. And right now it's very bold, so let's go to the rendering tab. We can go with a light glaze maybe, or a uniform glaze. Maybe the light glaze is better because I can really see the shape I created much better. And let's work now on the shape behavior. So I want to play with the rotation a little bit. In this case, I don't want to randomize it because I want to have the control on the brush, and there's also no need to scatter it. These are more for particle brushes, as I said, but we can definitely play with the rotation a little bit, and also with the brush roundness. Let's make that respond to our pressure, and let's work on our pressure tapering. A little bit smaller so it really responds to our hand. Same thing goes for the opacity. We're going to work into our Apple Pencil tab, and this is very important if we want our brush to listen to our hands as much as possible. See, if I turn down the opacity, it won't respond to my pressure at all. If it is up, depending on how much I push, the brush will change the transparency. But now comes the fun part. For this brush, the most important thing is the holographic effect. And how do we create it? We are going to work now on the color dynamics tab, because this allows us to play with the hue, saturation, etc. of our brush. So I'm going to add a little bit of hue, saturation into our pressure. You can't really see it now, but you'll see it later on. See how it's getting a little bit green here? And on the tilt too. So in every parameter there will be a different color. So I put on the dark interface so you guys can really see what I'm talking about, and see as I push, the colors come out. This stroke is very important because it will determine our hue, so you can play around with this. Maybe a little bit on the purpley side. We're getting there. And now let's go to the rendering tab. We want this to be an add brush. the luminosity here is essential, but let's try it with the luminance blending too. Yes. So this is how you create an holographic brush, and as you can see, depending on how my pressure is, it will change the color, which is really nice. Even the tilt will matter. And now for our last brush. This is where we really need to work on the texture more than the shape. Actually, for this brush in particular, we will use a simple, soft, round shape, so it isn't our focus at all. Let's get into our canvas and I'll show you. I want to create kind of a meadow texture, and to create textures, we need to use our entire canvas. We actually need to cover the entire canvas, and you'll see why later on. And I already have kind of an idea in mind, but let's see where this brings us. Remember to leave it a little bit transparent, don't go full on, because we still want this brush to be kind of an overlay to your piece. So I'm also going to blend some of these parts. This is just an example that I'm showing you because I really wanted to create this brush for one of my pieces. But of course you can really go crazy with it and create whatever comes to your mind. This is a freckle brush that you can find in my shading set, and it is free to download on my Ko-fi. And creating textures brushes like this that give kind of a noise effect will actually give you a lot more control on your artwork instead of slapping an entire filter all over the piece. I mean, you can do that, but I figured it would have been nice to have a brush. I'm going to add with my sketch pencil some little dots here and there to represent kind of the shadows of some flowers. You could potentially incorporate the glowing flowers into this brush by merging two different brushes like we did at the beginning, but I don't want to do this for this one because I want this brush to be more of a texturizer for our landscape. I want to have the freedom to have those other elements separated, like indeed the flowers or the mushrooms or different plants that I can add if I want. So if I put everything crammed into a single brush, it will be a little bit too much. Okay, I think this is a good base for me to show you how this works. Now, another thing that I like to do when I work with textures is this. I will select the entire texture and I'll make it a tiny bit smaller than our canvas. And then what I'm going to do is blend the border. And here is our texture. I'm going to do this in white too. Now you can see it, but trust the process. Let's save it as a PNG again with the transparent background. You know the drill by now. And let's create a new brush. Now for the shape, as I said, I'm going to keep a simple soft round shape, and this is already available in the shape editor. So you just need to go into the source library, and as you can see, there are many shapes ready for you to use, and I want to get this very soft one, super simple. This soft round shape will allow us to have control with this brush, so it is completely perfect for our purpose. We are going to work in the grain tab, so let's import our texture, and here we have it. This is where it gets tricky. I like to do the auto repeat. for grain, and this is why it is important to blend our border. Procreate already does it, but I like to do it too to kind of help it. See, if I remove the border overlap, it's going to be very harsh, and I don't really like it that much. We can also zoom in, zoom out. You really have a lot of freedom with your texture, so you can definitely play around with this. I almost like it zoomed in, so this is something you need to experiment with. Perfect. So we're going to overlap our border, can even move it around and position it in the best way possible. I think that's okay. Perfect. Let's do our other drill. Let's make it a bigger size and let's put our scale up. And as you can see, I already have a perfectly usable texturizer brush. Oh, I really like this one. You can work with the scale, maybe a little bit less. It's a bit too much. Let's make our brush much bigger. A little bit of pressure is okay too. Again, this is a texturizer, so we don't really need to do much with the size properties. Since I want this to resemble exactly what I drew, there's no need to do something like rotate because it will distort your drawing. For the blend mode, I'm gonna keep it on multiply. Now on this texturized tab, it's almost like the brush is revealing the background. And I don't really like this way of doing it. Sure, it's fine if you scale it maybe like this. It's something that you can change maybe depending on your artwork, but I prefer the moving effect much more. I messed it up. Because it will show the borders a lot less and overall the brush is much more clean. Let's see how it looks. So you have this little soft texture that you can apply to a lot of different sceneries. And that's it. I really hope you guys enjoyed this little tutorial video and I hope you have fun creating your own brushes. Of course, if you want to try mine, you can find them on my Ko-fi. The majority of my brushes are free. There are some that you can buy, but don't worry, it's just kind of a symbolic low price to support the channel. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you all next week. Bye bye.